but this guy's got a mom. This guy has a dad. We
Yep.
got
Go
to get
back
them.
and
I
get
said,
them.
go get him, put him on the hook and bring him up. So I send him back down. He hooks the guy up, and immediately about halfway up, I just like, my mind was, it tried to understand the gravity of the situation. Guy had no head, one arm, one leg.
Welcome to the Calm in the Chaos podcast, where we discuss untold heroic experiences and dive into the mindset of the Navy's elite rescue swimmers. Hosted by former U.S. Navy Aviation Rescue Swimmer, Mount Everest solo summiteer, and best-selling author Brian Dickinson.
All right. Excited to have my friend, Jonathan Showerman, on the podcast. Retired senior chief, 26 years of service, just an amazing human. And you've been a big part of my life throughout. We met as I was writing the book, Calm in the Chaos, and you really helped out. You had some stories to share, but you said you just wanted to be kind of in the peripheral to help me edit and make everything current because, I've been out for decades. So I really appreciate all you've done and who you are, and just welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Brian. I truly appreciate it. And thanks for the kind words. It just kind of shows that even though you and I never served together, the brotherhood that we share on our common things that we've done in our life in the Navy just continue on even after we retire and or do our 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 20 years, whatever. But just the bond and friendship that you can form with others throughout life is always a blessing. So thanks.
Yeah, no, it really is. And I think even like before, like I was in way back in the 80s, early 90s, not that old. Um, I guess I am. But you hear about like the camaraderie and the brotherhood and all that stuff, and then until you
Absolutely.
walk it out, until you actually experience that, and it's pretty unreal. So I find, or I guess I've found that so many people that, especially men that haven't served, always wonder, like, and kind of wish they would have, but it's always that wonder of, man, I would, if I could have, served or made it through, different, whatever it was, a lot of times it's like if their family came from a military background and they chose not to serve, which is totally fine because the military is not for everyone.
Correct.
But I'm just grateful that I did personally. Glad you did, and I'm glad that we've connected.
Same. Absolutely. My dad was in the Marine Corps for about 3 years, and right at the ending of Vietnam, didn't get drafted in that, but about 3 years, got out, finished out National Guard. I joined the Navy, inspired by Top Gun. I was 12 years old when that movie came out. I was like, yes. Now, didn't realize that to be a pilot, you had to have a college degree, and that was like nothing to do with school whatsoever. So,
Hmm.
and then wrapping it up, my son just joined the Air Force this past May, so it's just a nice
Awesome.
lineage of
Congrats.
3 generations. Absolutely, and he he actually put a post on Facebook. He's like, now I understand serving and what it means to serve, and he's like, thank you, Dad and Grandpa, for guiding and whatnot. So I thought that was really awesome on his part.
That is really cool. What's he doing in the Air Force?
He works avionics for F-35s. So
Oh,
he wanted to do something mechanical for a long time. He was wanted to go work on cars and do that, but that didn't really pan out. And then
yeah,
he's
but
over at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. So yeah.
okay. What a foundation, though, to build like you think about the electronics, the avionics nowadays, compared to when, we're flying and, something goes wrong, you take out the fuse and you lick it and stick it back in. And now everything is like so
Gosh,
computerized. And
he said that they don't work on hardly any parts. They just swap out a box, a unit, boom, and swap it with a new one. It's so interesting. Like I
yeah,
said, what you and I went through,
a little bit different.
crazy.
Uh, so tell me about, or tell our guests about like your childhood. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Michigan, born and raised, moved around 3 or 4 times before my parents settled down in a little town called Portland, which is right off of Interstate 96, right there in Lansing. Use the old palm of the hand there.
Oh yeah.
Um, Loved it. Grew up in, the Four Seasons. All of both sets of my parents still family lives there. And just kind of grew up in life with only child. Parents been married still to this day, going on 50 52 years. So
Yeah.
actually 54 years, I'm sorry. Yeah, so a great foundation. Like I said, Dad was in the Marine Corps, instilled that discipline, self-reliance, service above self. And yeah, like I said, Top Gun just sealed the deal for me just completely. I was like, that's what I
Yeah.
want to be when I grow up. So
It's interesting because it was kind of the same. That was my era as well. Saw that. But it was actually the rescue swimmer portion when Goose went down. And
oh yeah.
I was talking to someone about that, and they're like, man, I've never heard of someone not wanting to be a F-14 pilot from watching, like not wanting that, like actually more interested. I'm like, no, I wanted to do that too, but like you'd have to go to school, and there's a little more to that. So, but yeah, that was a great
Sir,
point.
you gotta let him go, sir. It's
Right?
hilarious.
Yep. That's awesome. So how was it having a Marine Corps father?
Ooh, Dad will even tell you to this day that he was super hard on me. He his dad died when he was 8 months old.
Oh my
So,
gosh. Yeah.
yep, grew up with basically he's the youngest of five kids. He had an older brother that was when I think is my namesake died when he was 14. So a lot of tragedy early on with the family. Older brother pretty much raised him along with my grandma Klein. So he probably didn't get the greatest, I want to say, fatherhood discipline upbringing.
Yeah,
Learned
for
some
sure.
things maybe the hard way, and he was always very strict and very hard. Um, so there were some times when obviously we would clash. I was always kind of a sensitive kid, kind of growing up, different from what maybe in his mind that his son should be. But everything was all made right when had that decision to join the Navy, and it was nothing but a blessing from that point on. And he and I have a great relationship still to this day. But it is interesting how you learn from each generation, from how they're raised, and you try not to do some things that were forced upon you or maybe
Hmm.
instilled upon you that you realize, yeah, okay, that's a good thing, but let me pull back a little bit from that and not necessarily
Yeah. No, I think
force that on
breaking
my
the
kids.
cycle is
Yes,
so
correct.
important.
Absolutely.
It's
Yep.
interesting. I didn't know that about you, or about your dad. My dad's dad died when he was 5, and he was
Mm,
the older, raising, basically his
it's
brother
tough.
and baby sister.
Yep.
So same type of thing. No positive role model growing up.
Hmm.
So he's figuring it out, and
Yeah.
you're gonna. That's a struggle. I mean, having a dad is just so important. I think
Huge.
generations before there wasn't a lot of focus on that. You just man up and everything else. But yeah, and I was sensitive as well. So yeah, no, it's interesting. I wonder how many of us out there are, end up in the
Right.
military and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But I joined right at 5 days after high school graduation.
Wow.
Didn't, yeah, I was in the DEP program for almost a whole year.
Oh, okay.
Knew that I was going to go in. Um, had my marching band experience, so I had rhythm, been in music my whole life, so I wasn't worried about the marching aspect. Uh, Joined, maybe I was a little worried about the physical aspect, but I was a late bloomer, sprouted up my junior year and got more leaner and in shape. And boot camp wasn't that difficult. But
I got out of shape in boot camp.
that's hilarious. No, it was good for me. I'd lost a lot of weight. I wouldn't say lost a lot of weight boot camp, but I got more lean and refined. I
Hmm.
went to San Diego. Where did you go to boot camp?
As in Orlando.
There you go. Yeah. So Dad pushed hard because that's where he went to was MCRD in San Diego. So he's like, he actually talked to
I
my
must have
recruiter. He's like,
been, what year was that?
91 in depth and 92 is when I went to San Diego
Okay.
for boot camp.
Yeah, it was
Yep.
93. San Diego was about to shut down, I think.
It was. Yep. Absolutely. There's still a couple remnants, not much. You have the Hill Bridge with the ship that's still there. Everything else though is gone. Like all the barracks are
Blue
gone.
Jacket.
Yes, yep, everything's gone pretty much, but except for that little blue jacket, the
Yeah.
bridge. So it's kind of sad, but yeah. So I actually initially got in, didn't score high enough in my ASVAB for any kind of certain specialties, and actually got put into the JOBS program, Joint Operational Basic Skills Program, job-oriented basic skills program,
Hmm.
and I kind of leaned in on math, reading, and English and stuff. And after that, you got a choice of 8 to 10 rates, operational rates, to include IS, OS, CTs, couple other ones. And as I'm sitting there with a good buddy of mine who was from Cleveland, we'd sit there and we looked at remember they have the cards, like they had the little cards that told you what each rate did. And in the upper right-hand corner of the card, it would tell you what the seashore rotation was. And we picked this one that said OTA, like Ocean Systems Technician Analyst. And we looked at it, 100% land, 0 sea. And we're like, I'll take that.
Yeah. Join the Navy. I don't want to go on a boat.
Exactly. Who wants to do that? So got that, went to the school, and basically it was a Cold War rate. 100% land. The hydrophones that are fixed throughout still there to this day on both sides of our continent. Over in ADAC. Yep. So that part of that SOSA system. Loved it. I absolutely love that. Still to this day, it's the best duty that I had. So it was 3 watch teams, and I went to Newfoundland, Canada. Loved it. You would love that as an outdoor guy, Brian. Just absolute gorgeous. There was it was an ASW base for a long time. In fact, that was the base for World War II for most of the flights prior. They were going over to Europe. They would stop there, gas up, fill up, gander, Newfoundland, and then fly over. Very cloudy, very, very hubbed inside to like a little bay area. So very, very hard to find. But basically, we had 3 rotational watches. You would have a shift that starts from 3:30 to 11:30 or 23:30, and then from 23:30 to 07:30, and then from 07:30 to 15:30. There's just those 3 watches, and you would basically do 2 evenings. You had 24 hours off, 2 mids, 24 hours off, and then you had 2 days, and you had 96 hours off. You just rotated through that, and you would plan where you wanted to go and do things. Yes, you plan everything on your 96s and just.
Well, how was the nightlife though? Like how was the?
Not a whole lot. Not a lot to do in Newfoundland. In fact, a lot of people that went there on orders, they would marry some newfies, and the people were just laid back, relaxed.
Really
St. John's was the closest big city. That's where the university was. You all the clubs and everything were up there. There was more of a school, kind of laid back, relaxed, more hip atmosphere. So we would drive up maybe an hour and a half, go up there and just have fun and rent some hotel rooms and stuff. But that's where I met a buddy of mine who was an AW rescue swimmer, and he got separated, had a cross rate to OTA because he ruined his shoulder. So he was telling myself and a couple other guys, and 93, 94, they're talking about the rate going away as the Cold War was going away. And they were looking for AWs to be rescue swimmers that were OTAs because of our prior ASW background and knowledge. And so I was like, okay, I like to swim. I like to do things. I'll go do that. And so I still have it to this day. I have my CHIT respectful request permission to cross rate to AW rescue swimmer. And I was accepted. And that was in the base. We shut the base down in October of 94, drove down, took the last ferry from the base to Nova Scotia, did that. And then I drove all the way from Nova Scotia down to Pensacola, Florida for NACAS in October 94.
So, Oh, that's quite a journey.
Thanks was
for bringing us along.
Yeah, so, appreciate it.
Yeah, what are your memories from rescue swimmer schools? Because you've had a unique experience being on both ends of it. I'd be curious, back in 94, what it was like for you, and then even comparatively, like how it is now.
Sure. Great question. So being a fleet returning was nice. So I got ramped up into NACAS, immediately got into SAR school. So I was done with NACAS end of probably mid-November, rolled right into SAR school mid-November.
People that don't know what NACAS is.
Sorry, Naval Aircrew Candidate School. So it's
That's
a precursor for all of our flying guys.
Yeah. So fun. Best food I ever had in the military. Because back then it was no enlisted there. It was an officer candidate school. And
you're right. OCS was there as well. Yep. So sad thing, they shut that galley down, the aircrew galley. That's gone now. So as budgets get tighter and tighter, they just look at ways to get rid of expense, and that's gone, unfortunately. And just a gorgeous base. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you remember the base itself. Just a gorgeous base right on the bay. A lot of historical things, and it's sad that the Navy has gone to this point where everything now is sublet outright. So you're talking the galleys, that's now commercially run. The mowing of the base, that's farmed out to. It's actually Softly Field has a prison. The prisoners at that prison mow the lawn during the week, and it gets done maybe once every 10 days or something. So it's just sad that to see the state of the base has kind of decayed a little bit. And then, of course, we've had 2 major hurricanes.
Yeah.
So,
Well, not sad if you're a prisoner though, because then you
no,
get
no,
to
it's
get
not.
out
No,
and
it's
get some
not.
fresh air. Yeah.
No. But to answer your question, 94, walking into the doors of Rescue Swimmer School, and how do I make this is enjoyable but not enjoyable at the same time? So the smell of the chlorine every morning when I would walk into that building, and just it wasn't a cave like atmosphere, but it definitely had this aura when you walked in early in the morning, not a lot of natural sunlight, and just a dimly lit one pool, one showered locker room for everyone. I remember as a student who was not such a regular, when I say regular, you know what I mean. Every morning I would walk into that building and I would have to go straight to the bathroom. Just the nerves and but once the day started and I was tasked with what to do, whatever you had to do for that day, it got easier. But just that initial, I walk in that building, it's like, okay, yep, here we go.
Yep, got to go destroy it. No, thank you for sharing that with our millions and billions of audience.
Right, exactly. But I still, in fact, I got a picture of it. Back then, everything was kept recorded paper, right? So previous to where computers were what it is today, that fiscal year, calendar year, they were in these hard cased books, and they're still at SARS was one of the few things that survived the hurricane in 04. My class is in there, and I could probably look up yours, Brian. If you can tell me what your class number was, it might still be there.
Yeah,
super cool. Every test, every score. I think we started. I have to look at the sheet. I probably should have before we started the podcast, but we probably started with 20 some students, rolled out about 8 or 9, rolled in about 8 or 9, and we graduated, I think, with 14 total. But I didn't fail a single event. Wasn't the greatest at pull-ups when I first started, but sure enough, hit the wickets that were needed to graduate, and graduated in just last week on the 16th was my 30-year anniversary of graduating Star School. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I wonder, when you have fleet guys that come back and go through versus just straight out of high school, just what you want to do.
Correct.
And you know what you don't want to do.
Correct.
So you have that knowledge, that experience.
Yep.
But I know fear is a factor for, anyone going through, just because if you fail, I don't know how it is today, but back then, like you were going to scrape barnacles.
Yeah. And that's, it's still alive today. And that could be a separate podcast. We can talk about the state of today's schoolhouse and the recruiting aspect and how things have changed so much. They were looking for anybody that was physically fit. Come join. It was an open door for all. It's still an open door, but you have to have certain wickets you got to hit, and we don't see as many fleet returnees as we do initial pipeline accession students. So it'd be interesting to do the data for you, but I don't see a lot of success with the fleet returnees just today. We're talking today, and that's a separate conversation.
Wonder why.
Yeah. There's a couple things in my head that I think attribute to, COVID didn't play a good part in keeping people physically fit. So
very disruptive.
Absolutely. So, but I think if you just it's almost like you can mold, right? Fleet returnees can have certain things in their head, and they're like, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to do that. Where you got a young student that has no idea, easy to mold, like a piece of clay, and then you just punch them out and get them out of there.
Yeah, it's almost that entitlement, but you would think like the newer kids coming through, that sense of entitlement, that everyone talks about with the next generation, but at the same time, they volunteered for a reason. So there's probably some, psychological benefits of getting those newer guys through, guys and girls.
Absolutely.
So is the attrition rate still where it was? Like
pretty much. It's stayed right around 30%. It'll fluctuate a little bit below. It'll go to about 35, 37 at some points, but it's still about a good high attrition rate, equal on par to the other 4, what we now call the Warrior Challenge program for the United States Navy. So SEAL, SWCC, EOD, Diver, and us. That's your 5 Warrior Challenge programs. And of course, super high attrition rates for all 5 of those. But yeah, we fluctuate and keep right around 35%.
Okay. Yeah, I know back in the day it was higher, but I know there wasn't a lot of prep going in.
Zero.
you
Yeah,
know, in the early days. So now they're actually, when they get there and the workups and everything else, they're vetted out.
absolutely.
So you're
Yep. There's
like,
a lot of money invested in students today, and it's from cradle to grave, right? So it's even prior to getting in, you get accepted as a recruiter. Your pipeline is out 2 years, and it's wickets, hit it, and it's a streamline, and it's a lot of money
yeah.
from point A to point B to get a student pushed through all the way to their ultimate duty squadron. So yeah.
That's so good because yeah, just the quality, you know, it's not about the quantity. I mean, you need quantity as
It
well.
is about quantity, but yeah, for us, and it's as my position now, being blessed as a retiree. Segue very quickly. We'll get back on our path.
Yeah, go for it.
I am the course supervisor at Rescue Swimmer School, so I have my fingers in all the pots, the prep course that you talked about, and then just Rescue Swimmer School itself, and then the Rescue Swimmer Instructor Training course, and then the remedial part of that all work together. Yeah, it's a well-oiled machine now that we need students. The fleet needs, they've asked for more, and we've been trying to give it to them. It's just recruiting is its own thing, state of the nation as it is, and the military is not so much the great thing to do anymore. So, but that ebbs and flows like everything else. But yeah, there's a lot invested in these kids from day one.
That's cool. Now, are you directly like hands-on with any of the students? Are they scared of you? Do you yell at?
So that's the nice part about now is that I like to say I have all the benefits and none of the responsibilities, right? So I don't need to go straight to yelling. That's what I let these superstar dudes, their first tour, short tour, they come here and they just mold and shape these kids to be the future generation of rescue swimmers. And it's
Awesome.
fun and it's neat to be in that environment again. It was tough. I was almost 2 years out of the military. I was like, when I first retired, I was like, I didn't want anything. Give me away. Just let me go do something in the civilian world and make my own way. And sure enough, it didn't take long. I was like, all right, I was institutionalized like Brooks Hadland in Shawshank Redemption. Like, just give me back, just get me back in. So, no, I don't do a whole lot, and there's no reason to, right? So my whole role, which I enjoy immensely, not just with the students but with the staff, just being that person of 26 years. And if someone has a question about, hey, how is this out here, or what is this like? I love that new aspect I have of the mentorship of just, giving a student the ability. It is absolutely fulfilling.
So are you more regular now, or do you still every morning you go in there and annihilate the toilet?
Well, I take my fiber every day, and that helps a lot. And I take my probiotics, and that helps as well. So it's hilarious. Yeah.
Let's go back to 94. So because of the high attrition rate and just the difficulty of getting through, you flew right through. What do you think stood out for you? Like, what was different about you as opposed to the people that weren't getting through?
I think I played sports all through growing up, baseball, ran some track. One thing, my big regret, never played football. That was my big regret, but baseball, basketball, love playing sports. I've always been ultra competitive, always. Board games, video games, it does not matter. Darts. My whole goal is
Did you used to
not
play
just
lawn
beat you,
darts?
but the things that today
Don't
would
get
be
competitive
banned
with that
completely
one.
in how many countries? Oh my gosh, yes. But just my whole mantra and mindset was just, I am the best. You are not better than me. I will beat you, whether it's a sprint in the pool for, pays to be a winner. You remember those? Just my whole goal was always to be number one. So I think that helped, that drive and that success for me. And it's still to this day, it's my wife will call, like, why you gotta be so aggressive? I'm like, sorry, it's just the way I'm wired.
Yeah,
but
no, right.
I do think that helped me be successful and not failing along the way. Roles, whatever you want to call it. But that mindset is very important, because if you don't have that mindset, because in the water, as you know, it is just you. There is no one else. So if you don't have that mindset, it can lead itself to easily going like, well, this isn't for me. I'm just going to quit. So
yeah, it's interesting. I put that in the book, and it was just something I hadn't really thought much about, because I end up soloing, lots of mountains around the world and being very comfortable doing that.
right.
And a lot of people just wonder, how can you be comfortable doing that? Well, our job in the military, it's a team. You're a part of air crew, but once you leave that helicopter, it's one-on-one, it's one to many, but you're pretty much operating on your own.
That's
So
correct.
that's pretty unique from
Yep.
the military perspective.
Yep. Absolutely. But to round everything up and get to the kind of the meat of the podcast, left there, went straight to Millington when it was when A school and everything was still in Millington. Rolled right through and got the chance to pick orders at the end there of A school. And in my mind, I was like, I always, and probably Top Gun probably helped that. I was like, never wanted to be on a small ship. Give me carriers. So HS was the way to go. And
Yeah, same.
I was like, I wanted to be East Coast. They want to be West Coast. So I picked HS and on the East Coast. And sure enough, I got lucky to be the HS 15 Red Lions was my first squadron there in Jacksonville. Went to HS 1 for my FRS squadron, the Fleet Replacement Squadron. So landed myself into HS 15 in Jacksonville, and 96 is when I got there.
Okay. How many deployments?
So with 15, I got there in April of 96, and they were on their COP 2X on the USS Enterprise. So that was my first ship. Cool. Man, you talk about a ship that was set in the 1950s when it was built.
I was on the Constellation. I get it.
Yes, right. Did the Connie have what the Enterprise had, which was the showers with the push button, or did you have Hollywood showers?
Oh no! I mean, nothing came out really, so you had to like fling it on yourself.
But most people would do, they would take that handheld and they would stick it up into like between the pipes to lock the button in. So at least you had a Hollywood shower. Otherwise, it's oh my gosh, yeah.
So it was like filled with JP5 or whatever. Anyways.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yes. But our berthing was top notch. Though we had our own berthing, right under the 3-wire, which. Oh. As you get used to it, it's like, well, which is worse? The cat underneath the catapults or under the wires? It's like you learn to sleep underneath both of them. Exactly. So, but the fact that it's just that first chance getting with a group of dudes that to this day are still some of the best friends I have, and it's just interesting that first squadron that it just molds you, and you just learn how to be a team player, and just you do everything together. You work hard, you play hard, you go out and you party hard, and you become families, and guys get married and guys have kids, and you do everything that we would have. Just everything. That first group was just an amazing group of dudes. So first thing that happened for me was was my second deployment cycle. We went and left the Enterprise, and then we got attached to the Eisenhower. And on our workups on the Eisenhower, it was actually one of the end of like a CQ det. So for those who are unfamiliar, a CQ det is a carrier qualifying detachment. Real quick, 10 days, maybe most, where you've got your fixed wing guys who are brand new from their squadrons, get ready to go to their ultimate squadrons, and they got to get their traps and cats. They got so many that they have to do, right? So it's just nothing but cats and traps all day long, just over and over and over. And it was the last day. We got this call over the radio. Somebody saw a parachute in the water. And so T-45, right? So 2-seaters, you got your instructor in the back, you got your pilot in the front. We get the call. I'm with myself and another second class. I was an AW2 at the time. And I was the crew chief. He was the swimmer. Just one of those days where you just, rock, paper, scissors. You end up being the swimmer that day. Come up on the scene, and I tell you, Brian, it's like someone just took about 2,000 eggs and just crushed up the shells and just threw the eggshells in the water. It was just pieces everywhere. The impact that aircraft had to hit to do that, just mind-boggling. Maybe one piece of a small aileron was about all that we ever saw. We saw one parachute in the water. It was completely streamlined, wasn't even ballooned. So we knew it was a super high, didn't have a lot of time. So we get in, and to not disturb a lot of stuff, we pulled right into a 60-foot hover instead of going down 10 and 10. Sent the swimmer down. He went, looked around, and then he comes back to the hoist. He gives me the thumbs up. I bring him up the aircraft. He gets in the door. He brings him, and he goes, "He's dead." And I said, immediately my mind just goes right to, okay, yep, got it. But this guy's got a mom. This guy has a dad. We got to get them. I said, go get him. Put him on the hook and bring him up. So I send him back down. He hooks the guy up, and immediately about halfway up, I just my mind was, it tried to understand the gravity of the situation. Guy had no head, one arm, one leg, just completely interesting to this day. Like, it doesn't bother me. It's not something I have doesn't trigger. And I was very worried maybe like something that would be traumatizing. But you have to laser focus yourself and understand that you have a job to do. You've got to make sure this happens. Got him on board, and you talk about, he was a pretty heavy dude. He was probably over 2 bills, if not close to 225. Trying to bring someone into the aircraft that weight by yourself. And if you remember so we were flying in a Foxtrot, so you had the fixed crew grip on the door, or you had the pendant grip in your hand. I ended up having to do, I loved always using the crew grip just because it was a nice holding point for me to anchor myself in the aircraft with the gunner's belt so I can move around but still be somewhat locked. Trying to bring him in as you're pulling down on the crew grip and then bring him in at the same time. It took me 3 times. And the last time I just had to give every ounce just to get that guy. And he ended up being right there on the floor, unfortunately, in the aircraft. Brought my swimmer up, got a helmet. Nothing was inside the helmet, thankfully, but we got everything we had as much as we could. Flew back, and we actually flew back the ship. They brought out a Stokes litter with a blanket. We put them there and got them out of there, and immediately went back to Jacksonville. We flew. We didn't even wash out the aircraft because we were getting ready to leave. Like, we had our things on board the aircraft. So that was a very sad day, but a necessary thing, unfortunately, that we have to do in our community sometimes when things get bad.
Yep. It's not all glory. I mean, it is to be able to return. So there was 2 pilots in that aircraft, right? Was
correct. Never found the other body. Nope. So I don't know what happened, if he was still attached to the seat and the parachute maybe didn't go off, because like I said, that one that we found was completely streamlined. So the impact and just the no time they had to probably do something was just so fast.
Yeah, that's horrible, man. I mean, thank you for doing that, but man, to have to go through that. Yeah, you hear these stories. I know I was with HS2, and they had a couple CQs going on different carriers, and I think it was EA6 had ejected, and same type of thing. 2 of them survived. 2, like, their heads were like on backwards, and having to pull up, deal with that. It's sad. Everyone, you see the movies, and you hear all the cool stories, but it's the reality.
It's not always bad.
A lot of time search and rescue is about recovery.
It's a fact. Absolutely. Yep. So then transferred out of HS-15, went to here in Pensacola for my first short duty at A school. Had a chance to go to STAR school, but in the back of my head, as a second class, I'm like, if I go to STAR school, I'm not going to study. And for those of you that are not familiar with the Navy is one of the few ones where you have to study and take a test, right? It's not just a fitness and review. It's not just based on your record. It's that you have to actually know your rate, know your job to get advanced. So I knew if I went to SAR school, I would not study. So I chose AWA school so I could get in the vault there and study, and did that. Very rewarding, very successful. Enjoyed my time there, and then still left though, unfortunately, as a second class. But went to HS4.
Was that in Millington still?
Nope. That they had already made the move. The move to Pensacola was in '97, I believe, is when they moved everything down. So, yep, that was just a nice little drive from Jacksonville to Pensacola. Did a little ditty move to make some money on that. I'm sure I don't know if you remember doing that kind of stuff, but money wasn't always the way it is now, where you can just have things to your disposal. So, but got to when I was at getting ready to rotate. My first choice, I wanted to go to Japan. My brother-in-law was at HS-14. He loved it. It was like, man, I want to go so bad. Married, 3 kids at the time. We just had our third kid, and the Navy's like, 5 dependents, Japan. No, you're not going. We're not spending that much money to send you to Japan. So, got orders to HS4, and so that was the next best thing for me. I wanted to do Westpac. I didn't want to go back to Jacksonville to do the same med deployment. So, was able to weasel my way in because my good buddy was at Millington. He was the assistant detailer for the AWs. He got me as an HS or as a AW3 billet, even as an E5. And those days are long ago, and that's another conversation we can have about how detailing works today. But and to HS4, Black Knights, and what a very awesome, interesting squadron. If you don't know a lot of history about that, they were the squadron that was solely responsible for all the recoveries for the Apollo crews. just really super cool. And did
Yeah, I included Mike Long in the book, and I'm going to have him on
yes,
the
you did.
podcast as well. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
good,
Yep.
good dude. It's so neat to just hear those stories, just the history of just paving the way. And but yeah, HS4 has definitely had the history. Like,
Absolutely. Got to first deployment on the inaugural deployment of the Ronald Reagan. So you talk about going from the Enterprise and the Eisenhower, and then going to this brand new spanking Mercedes. Man, what a difference!
yeah.
And just getting a chance to do some, like I said, a lot of cool different ports, a lot of different things to see.
Hmm.
Spent my whole time there. Made first class right away, which was nice. I actually took the test when I was at HS10, going through my refresher. So I did my whole tour at HS4. Spent only 3 years and some change, but I got selected for chief in '07. So I actually checked in as an E5 and left as an E7, which was really, really awesome. And I got orders to Great Lakes. So nothing significant really happened other than just some cool deployments, and got a chance to be an LPO at sea at HS4. But I went to Great Lakes, and I only took those orders because I found out that we weren't pushing boots. It was at the combat pool at the USS Indianapolis,
Oh,
where
nice.
you do the actual 1-2 day for the recruits for the third class swim test. Another rewarding tour. First, as a chief, just learning how to take care of dudes, even more so, right? Non AWs. You can understand, Brian. You have an understanding of how easy, with a bunch of motivated alphas, it's not hard to just to lead them, right? But when
Hmm.
you start leading other individuals that don't have the mindset of the alphas and be the best and just all these things, it can be very difficult. You spend a lot of time in trying to move these sheep in the direction you got to go to. So it was neat, and it was good for me to get out of that comfort zone of just you push crews and you let the shop go.
Yeah. Gives you
Another
some good
rewarding tour.
perspective.
Yeah, loved it. I worked kind of an afternoons kind of shift. Got to see all these kids that just have this innate fear of water. They join the Navy, but they just have this innate fear of, because it's a 10-foot tower that you have to do. It's you got to step off, and you got to swim
Yeah.
50 meters, and you got to demonstrate the fact that you survive, and then you do the 5-minute face down prone float. Man, I tell you what, we would have had at any point in time up to 200 kids that had failed the test, that were just there. That you got a little kiddie pool. You start baby steps, crawl, walk, run. Just a really interesting time I had there as well. Like I said, that's another opportunity for something down the road, just to kind of talk about some cool things with that you get a
Yeah.
chance, because there were a lot of swimmers there, a lot of not just AWs, but a lot of surface rescue swimmers that were there,
Oh, yeah.
staff wise. So yeah.
Yeah. So like the dive motivator, all that.
Mm-hmm.
When I went through, we had that, but it was combined, like SEALs, SWIC, divers, rescue swimmers. Was that going on? Were you part of that at all?
So that was just starting up as the Buds Prep. I think I started
right.
in
Because it
08.
split off, right?
Yep. So, but like you said, anyone's special programs. The 800 divisions is what they would call them. So anyone that was, the 5 Warrior Challenge programs, they get up 4:00, 04, whatever, march their happy butts down to Indianapolis and get swim and PT'd out. I think almost sometimes 3 times a week. And it was neat. Yeah, they had a lot of cool. It was neat to see that dynamic of my first chance of foray into civilian coaches and the different aspects they can bring, because there was a couple of dudes there that were Olympic athletes. Yeah, it's neat. They shut it down for a little bit, but thankfully it's back up again. They're going to start that back up again this year. When I say this year, meaning 25. So a very necessary thing for again, to get these kids from civilians all the way to their ultimate squadron and just get them more prepared.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. So I left Great Lakes in 2010. And I was like, all right, where do I want to go? I knew at that point, it was 18 years in, brand new chief, still 3 years in. I was like, I still want to take a shop to see. I wanted to be that LCPO and have a chance to have my own shop. Because I was in my head going back and forth with the math. Well, do I want to retire at 20? It's like, no, I want to go back. So unfortunately, the only thing available was Norfolk. This is the point where we're starting to transition all the squadrons from Jacksonville to Norfolk. This new master rate, where we take the AW rating and we subdivide it into 5 subsets: the O's, the V's, the W's, the R's, and the S's. And moving everything to Norfolk and start the transition from old HS and HSL into this new HSC, HSM aspect. So HS5, Night Dippers, they're in Norfolk, and back to the Eisenhower. Hilarious how life just kind of full circle. I go from the Reagan to the Eisenhower, and we're doing some workups. This is about 2011. We're getting ready to go on deployment, and they came out right off the rip and they said, we're going to do a 9-month deployment. It was like, we were mentally ready for it. We're like, this is the way it's got to be. And it's so interesting, Brian. You probably remember how you could, on a clock, your inter-deployment training cycle was 24 months. You came off your deployment, you had 6 months stand down, and then you ramped up. And that was 18 months from that point to your next. And it was clockwork, right?
Yeah, brutal.
Now it's just so, whether it's the carries or having whatever, or it's just the double dual carrier presence in the Gulf for 20 plus years. Just a lot of things changed that cycle. So they just said, yep, you guys, you're going on a 9-month deployment and go. So carrier A-Wing 7. We get going and we're out there, we're doing our thing. I had a fellow chief, Carl Hess, good dude, interesting guy, but he was there. He was senior to me, so I deferred to him. We were co-chiefs, but I kind of deferred to him a lot of stuff. They ended up saying, all right, something happened with the carrier. I think either there was something that needed to get fixed, repaired. So we go back home after 5 months. They do the fixes. Carl actually was getting ready to rotate out. He went to HSC2, the RAG there, and we go back out for another 4 months. So in a span of 13 months, we actually were out deployed for 11 to 13 months. It was really, really crazy. Get back out there,
family too,
a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Got a champion for a wife though. She's been with me since my first deployment. And that, as you know, with Joanna, you get the right woman behind you and they understand the lifestyle but they support you and they sacrifice huge sacrifices, but she's been a champ from day one. We just celebrated our 27th anniversary this past year. So, appreciate it. But you get the right family behind you and you can move mountains, do anything. So still at this point, nothing's happened. Right. So, but we go back out to sea and within a month, I mean, I feel bad, Brian, cause I'm on Christmas leave right now. I have my I Love Me binder at work and I still have the flight schedule. I still have the NAMs and everything for this first real rescue, not a salvage, right? So we're just out flying and we're in a hotel, right? So it's not a Foxtrot. So for those of you that are not familiar, a hotel is more like it's like a Black Hawk, but it's not completely Black Hawk. It was the first foray of Sikorsky's vision to go into from the Black Hawks. Big cargo personnel moving up to 10 people. You can have seats for
a gutted cabin.
Absolutely. Yep. So for whatever reason, we just, you rotate through, you got to put certain hours on all the aircraft that you take out. So we were just in a hotel one day, not a big flying day because it was June in the Med and it was just a nice clear day. There was some stuff going on between one of our pilots and a French Rafale doing like an air show. All of a sudden we get here over the radio, man up, suit up. We got an aircraft in the water. We find out it's not ours. We found out it's the French Rafale. So interesting. There was 3 of us in the back. Things changed throughout my first deployment. I got almost 1,500 hours, flight hours. Just flew all day long and always wet. Wasn't dry. They kind of have morphed into this, equality for everybody. Everybody's got to get within the same amount of flight hours. This person can't fly more than this person. So there'd be times when you would have 3 people, especially in a hotel, that would fly in the back. And so the flavor would be usually 2 guys who were crew chiefs and then 1 swimmer. So I flew with a fellow TSO, and for that is for a tactical, TSO.
Sensor operator.
Tactical sensor operator. Thank you very much. Yes. So on a fellow TSO who could fly on his own like a crew chief. And then we had 1 swimmer, very junior guy. I think he was our junior swimmer in the shop at the time. So I tell Justin Tolbert. Justin Tolbert was the swimmer. Brad McCutcheon was the crew chief along with me. And I remember prior to that, because we were a cold Gulf. So we did the pre-flight. We did everything. It was our first go of the day. And this is a very important thing to convey and guys that will understand. If you do not pre-flight or if you not do certain things will rear its ugly head in flight. So I to this day, I think I remember Brad and myself. I think we Rochambeaued for pre-flight. Something happened, anyways. But I don't remember doing the pre-flight myself. But being the chief at the time and the senior dude in the aircraft, it falls on my shoulders.
Mhm.
So we get out, we fly, we get Justin ready. We do a 10 and 10. The guy's just sitting right there. He's just kind of hanging out. Didn't see the aircraft anywhere, but he was just hanging out. So we deploy him 10 and 10. Get up, we get everything starting to go. And I told Justin prior to going, I was like, dude, he's gonna be French, so just go slow. Do your best to communicate, but I mean, it's
Go slow.
don't know how
French.
well his English is going to be exactly. So,
okay, got it.
Brad and I were getting everything ready. We got the litter rigged up, and as I'm rigging up the litter, I realized that there's only one lifting V ring.
Oh.
Yeah. So what happened was the day prior, this bird was in the hangar, and what we had a you can call it whatever you want to call them. We called them the TSO check. So it was the final board for our guys getting ready for crew chief and TSO to have like a murder board, just where it's like a couple hours of just getting peppered with every question here and there.
It sucks.
You remember that?
Receiving end.
Yo, 100%.
You have to know everything.
You do.
Everyone's trying to trip you up.
So we brought in a SAR curtain, and it was the SAR curtain from the bird in the hangar.
Mm-hmm.
So something happened where the one lifting V ring was left behind somewhere, whatnot. Didn't catch on the pre-flight, so guess what? We had to rig this thing up for a vertical rescue.
Okay, let's pause. Was there a back injury suspected, or is that just
no? But it's common knowledge for us in our training that that if you have an ejected pilot, you assume the worst, and just for precaution's sake, you put somebody in a litter. So that's actually a story we'll get to for my next one, which is actually kind of interesting. So get this guy in, and so it's hindsight. If I didn't do it all over again, we probably just would have put him in as but again, as a French, I don't know what their capabilities are. Do they have the same hooking mechanisms as we do? It was just safer all around. Put him in the litter, he's controlled, bring him up. So, but could you imagine doing a 70 foot up the wire in a vertical position where as a victim?
Make sure those arm straps are in.
I told him, I said, you make sure that stuff is tight as can be. But we got him up, and here's another thing. So I'm a firm believer, as you are as well. We are not the only people in this world, in this universe, right? There is a higher being, fully, committed follower of Jesus Christ, Savior. Everything in my life, especially in the Navy, has been by divine intervention. Nothing that I've done has been based on me. It's been the hands of him maneuvering me through this life. Yeah. And there was a reason why there was 3 of us on that flight, because can you imagine trying in a vertical sling with us, it's basically it attaches to the top of the litter. So he's straight up like this.
Yeah.
Trying to bring in someone like that by yourself in the aircraft.
No.
Not possible. It took us 2 times to get the right leverage where I'm basically hanging outside the door. Brad's got and so me pulling and him.
Feet first or head first?
Head first. Bring him in head first. Absolutely.
Okay.
So just kind of bringing him in and doing that. So got him on board. Thankfully, safely, nothing happened. We bring up Justin, and man, is he gassed. But it was calm conditions, dude. Flat, gorgeous Mediterranean water. It's amazing how you think you're ready for something like that, but the adrenaline and just the training kicks in, and you get gassed. He was no good, right? You bring him on board. So Brad and I are just kind of talking to him. I lean over to him, start talking to him, and as a guy, he had like 0 English, so everything was. And he still had his mask. Cigarettes. He still had his he still had his mask somewhere on his face, because it's not the same bayonet fittings. I give Justin props. He did it. He did a safe job. He did everything fine. Got him on board. But yeah, he had some cuts in his face, so something must have been jarring at some point when he impacted. But yeah, safely got him on board. Flew him to the French carrier. I can't remember exactly what the name of the carrier was, but got him on board. Got him off safe and clear, and that was my first traditional rescue.
That's crazy. Yeah, you think about it. People that are in our profession, it's probably very difficult. But if you think of a litter, it's like a gurney or a bed that you're strapped to. So it's how big is that? 6-7 feet long?
I think it's 6 feet long, because you got to be able to fit some tall people on it. It might be just a little bit taller than that, but it's 40 pounds on its own, right? And then you smack another, we'll just even say 200-pound person. Then they're soaking wet with gear.
Yeah, when it comes up horizontal, it can be difficult because you're pulling it in and you're scraping it across the floor and you have all
Right.
that weight in it.
Yep.
But when it's vertical, that's insane. I'm just I'm thinking like we're all problem solvers, right? That's we assess the
Hmm.
situation. If you were alone back there, like what do you
Oh,
do? Like get one
what
of
would I do?
the
Yeah,
co-pilot to come
I
back or
probably at that point would have like, if I couldn't have gotten him in, I would have sent him back down, and I would have had Justin take him out of the litter, and we probably would have just brought him up.
or
Probably would
even
have sent
had
the strop, probably
Justin
send the strop down, put him in the strop, and just bring him up that way.
or even bring Justin up. I don't know if there was is that
I don't know
past
how
the
you could do it.
weight
I don't know how you
limit?
could. His basically the dude's face would be here in his chest. He'd be kind of.
That's fine.
You know, you
Yeah,
imagine
why
trying to
not?
bring him and another person on at the same
Yeah,
time.
have the hack just bank left.
Bank hard left.
Oh,
Oh goodness, yeah.
that's
So that was
crazy.
So again, and I'm sure you've I can't remember if you talk about this in the book or not, but there is never going to be, I shouldn't say never, but the chances of a perfect rescue from start to finish hardly will ever happen. There's always going to be something that's going to take place, whether
Yeah,
it's a
too
piece of
many
gear
factors.
breaks. Yes, so many factors, right? So that was our one big factor that ended up being a role in that rescue. So get that rescue, and of course, you know, get the obligatory NAM and all the, you know, accolades and everything would come with it. At that point in my career, I didn't care about that kind of stuff. I just wanted to be a part of something to help
Mhm.
not be a salvage and be an actual rescue. So really cool. And then sure enough, 1 month later, I get my second one. You talk about, I went my whole career, didn't have a single rescue, and I get two within the span of a month.
Yeah.
Absolutely nuts. This one you talk about, I think, is more appropriate for your mindset. We talk about with the calm and the chaos, right? So this one, and I can go into great lengths and details.
Yeah,
My
go for it.
swimmer, oh my gosh, he went on to I talked to you about it on a Coast Guard swimmer. He's got his own podcast. Um, his name has escaped me right now, but my swimmer at the time, the most junior swimmer we had in the shop, the hack helicopter aircraft commander, the most junior hack, so brand new, the most junior H2P helicopter second pilot, and myself. So I am the most senior by like probably combined times two. We were in a Foxtrot. We were doing, I remember it was a Sunday because we were doing the holy helo runs, right?
Yeah.
So Sundays, every day on the boat on cruise is a Monday. Every day. The only day that's different are Sundays. Sundays are relaxed. You have brunch, you have church services, there's usually not a lot of flying going on.
Yeah.
It's really a day of the week that the air wing completely just takes off. There's usually not
But
a
the
lot of
holy
flying.
helo is we would
The holy
fly
helo is we take the chaplain to all
chaplain.
the other ships that are in our battle group, right?
Yeah.
So we have a trucked out Foxtrot. So 3 seats in the back, TSO seat, ASO seat, so we can sit 5.
No sonar?
Myself. Nope. Sonar gets when we say trucked out, you pull out the sonar reeling machine and all that gear in the back, and it allows you to put in 3 seats with a bar at the top, so you can put 3 troop seats in the back.
Yeah, those are real comfortable.
Yeah, it's not horrible. And if you give me a choice, hotels are nice because you can stack up the rafts and you can stack up a couple things and you can just sit on the floor. As myself, I'm 6'3", so I've never been able to sit up straight or even stand up, even in either one of the aircraft. So hotels are nice for that aspect, but my money, give me a Foxtrot. I sit in the ASO seat every time because at least the chairs are much like the pilot's, got a little more relaxing, more comfort to them, a little more relaxing. I can sit and look out the window and see things that are going on. So take my usual spot, the ASO seat. And at that point in my career, because I'm like, I wanted a rescue, be the swimmer, right? So a lot of times, and I would give that benefit to where it was rarely done for me, but the moments that it was done for me in my first tour were something I remembered. I would fly wet as much as possible to give those guys a little bit of a break. So they're not having to sit in the middle of the Gulf with neoprene and just sweat upon sweat, right? So that day, Tyler Bodecker, there we go. Tyler Bodecker was my swimmer. I knew I'd get in a second. I was the crew chief. He was a swimmer. So we're flying. At this point, we're getting ready. It's towards the end of our flight. We went and picked up chaplain and 2 other passengers. So we've got 5 people in the back of this aircraft, right? We're hearing word over the radio that there is a it wasn't an emergency. They were calling an emergency because we had an F-18 two-seater that was getting low on fuel. Turns out that they were doing some things in the Gulf. They couldn't refuel on land because there was a sandstorm, making this distress call emergency situation. Hey, low on fuel. So I think the carrier was trying to do its best to go back towards the Gulf, going more so that we could try to pick this guy up. Turns out it wasn't going to make it either way. So they get themselves within wind line to try to get this guy to land. And I want to say within a few minutes of what happened, Tyler's going, he's getting more dressed out, right? So, you fly for immediate rescue as a swimmer. So you got your wetsuit, you got your tri-sar, you're gearing everything on, your flight suit on top, your boots, and you're wearing your helmet. So at that point, you just take your helmet off, you take your boots off, you take your socks off, you put your booties on, get your gloves, get everything, get your mask, everything ready to go at that point. So get the call, he's getting ready to try to land, doesn't make it. And so prior to this, I told the hack, I was like, and I remember it was I can't remember, I'd have to say, I apologize. I wish I had this flight schedule with me that could tell you who it was. I was like, sir, I said, we need to go and drop these packs off. We need to do this now. Get on the horn with the air boss and get these passengers up. Because in my head, I'm thinking, all right, two-seater, not a one-seater F-15, two-seater. If you've got the worst case scenario, we only fly with one litter, right? And so we already, like we talked about, you presume a back injury for any ejected pilot. So in my head, I'm like, well, this is going to be interesting. So I was like, let's land, kick these passengers out, get another litter, and we're ready to go. Hack's like, yeah, this is a great call, Chief. Let's do it. He gets on the horn with the air boss. Air boss says, no.
Okay.
Go get him. I was like, oh my goodness. In my head, I'm already kind of fuming in my head. But you gotta, as the senior person, you can't let your emotions take control, let alone outside, voice those emotions.
Yeah, you've been outranked.
Right? Yeah. So they crash. We're getting ready. So what I did at that point, I put the chaplain in the TSO seat. And the way the TSO seat is centered in the aircraft, as you remember, it's right in the middle. So it's exactly in the middle of the aircraft. Everything spins around you. I put him in that TSO seat and I shoved him all the way forward. So even if you fly in the Foxtrot, much like a Romeo now, you have to configure your seats to give yourself room for the litter to come in. And the downside too with that aircraft, as you remember, is the rail, the seat rails that are drilled into the floor that you can't move. It's just another thing you've got to maneuver around. So move the seat, put the chaplain in the TSO seat, move them all the way forward. I put the other two passengers on the far troop seats on the left-hand side. I put one in the ASO seat. So both those seats are taken care of. The seats are pushed up. I got the one passenger to my left. And I told Tyler, I was like, all right, Tyler, if neither of these guys have a back injury, we're going to bring them up the wire. Bring them right up the hoist. I'm not going to mess around. If they're feeling fine, we're just going to go ahead and do it that way. So it's something that I love to talk about with our students now as they're getting ready to graduate. As the course supervisor, I give their end of course critiques, and I have a nice little spiel. And what I do is there's two things I also bring into the course when I do this with the critiques. I still have my old HBU 11. So you remember the old harness that we wore. Right. That was, it's part of the issue why I've got back issues. Exactly.
No leg support.
I bring in my HBU 11. And then I still have one of my shirts, Brian. I still have one of my shirts from SAR School. It's number 20, OTASN, Showie, SHOWE.
Yeah, Showie, that's great. I had Dickie.
Right? Dickie, exactly. It's so good, right? So I do that for a reason. One, to show them a little bit of history. And then number two, how things have gotten better. But I also talk about the ability of how you have to have control in what you're doing, and you have to control yourself. So as I was talking to Tyler, I was like, let's just do this. But as you know about it, and as I tell these students, our 3 Tech 50 manual, it's about that thick, right? And so these kids, they just get a sliver, right? We give them just enough to get them out the door with enough knowledge to then hopefully become efficient rescue swimmers. But I tell them all the time, I was like, your training doesn't stop here. You have just learned the top layer. You've got this much more to learn. And if I said, once you crack that book open, if you look on page two, right at the beginning, it says, you are allowed to deviate in this instruction, provided you use sound mind and judgment. So right there, the first book, the page of the book tells you that if something is not the way it should be done, you can deviate. So in my head, I just told Tyler's like, yep, let's just, because that is a deviation. It says you should, it doesn't say shall, but it says you should put an ejected pilot into the litter. So got the guys ready, 70 foot down the wire, not a glorious 10 and 10, which would have been super cool because the carrier's right there. They made it, I think they said they were about 400 yards shy when they had to punch out. So they punch out. What's that?
That's crazy, man. You're like,
it is. They got so close. I mean, what a waste of tax dollars. I know, right? so they punch out, 70 foot down the wire. I send Tyler down, and I can see him. Everything looks pretty calm. And it is such a unique aspect to see from that, 70-foot height, just how things are working and things that are going on. Mm-hmm. Hack did a great job. In fact, I think the hack was left seat, so the H2P was in the right seat, just controlling everything. All hands involved did a fantastic job. Bring up the first guy. First guy comes in. I sit him immediately to my left. I'm talking to him like, hey man, how you doing? He's like, yeah, I'm okay. And he showed me his hand. He got a cut right here. So something happened with either when they did the ejection, something hit, whatnot. It was a pretty good cut. Bring the second guy up, bring him in. He's doing great. Talking to him. Yep, everything's good. Bring Tyler up. We go and we land on the carrier. So in my mind, I don't ever want to toot my own horn, Brian. And I know you don't want to either. But as you talk about in your book, if you don't control yourself and get that calm and get that understanding of how you need to work something through, things can unravel very quickly. And especially as the senior person in that aircraft, it was needed to make sure that was demonstrated. Yep, we hit a hurdle. Airbus wouldn't give me what I wanted. Okay, shift gears. Don't bitch and moan about it. Make the way that you need to make it so that it's still the most effective and safe rescue possible. So just the fact that we were able to, with 7 dudes in the back of that aircraft, bringing up 2 guys that had just had the worst day of their life. And that's what we talk about all the time. Is like, yeah, your best day as a rescue swimmer is the worst day for someone that you're trying to rescue. So got him on board. We actually had to fly off that dude with a cut hand. He had actually to go out and get the boat couldn't take care of it. He had to actually get surgery on his hand and get that taken care of. So, but just you have to be able to keep that calm in the chaos, just like you said. And just know your procedures. Don't let them have a brain fart because something didn't go your way, and then it alters and directs the rest of your we'll call it next 15-20 minutes of your life. So yeah,
it's amazing because in those moments, I mean, that's why the training is so hard and why there's that seniority and with experience and everything, because when the stuff does hit the fan, you're able to channel all the peripherals out and focus on that one thing for success. And then that one thing leads to another thing. But as soon as you get off track, man, people are looking to you in the back, in your scenario as a crew chief, or was it Tyler? He's in the water and he's making those assessments. If he sees, battle scars or anything else, then the whole landscape changes. And next thing, I don't know if he had a radio or he'd have to come back up, but next thing you're launching the Alert 30 to then bring a litter out and, to help out, or you have the litter and you got to figure out how to wedge it between 3 packs and potentially another dude who's bleeding out from the hand. So there's so much stuff that's going on, and it's pretty amazing how well, even when I talk to some of the OGs of their on-the-job training back in the day to how it's evolved to now, there's so many things that are so different but so the same, because at its core, as a special ops community, you're only special because you know the basics and you know it really well, and you go back to that and you build on that foundation.
Yeah. It's just like you said, it's the ability to not realize that you know everything take that little bit of humility, but then also continue to be the best you can each day, whatever it's just something small. Okay, I'm going to get better at this today, do whatever that. And then hopefully when the time comes and I'm asked to answer the call, then hopefully then you, like I said, your training kicks in and it's just hopefully easy
and you
peasy.
do it. You didn't hesitate. You took control. And we're always self-evaluating. So you've had a lot of time to think about it. What is something that you could have done better?
Probably, obviously, pre-flight. Number two, with that, the last one with the two guys, maybe letting one of them have maybe the chance to put on a gunner's belt and just kind of take a look and see what was going on, because it was an enlisted dude and a chaplain, and maybe that's the only thing. Because other than that, everything worked out as well as it probably could have.
Yeah.
Would have been even better if the Airbus would have let us land and get another litter and kick those guys out. Absolutely. But it was his call. He made the call.
Even those decisions, the calls that you tried to make, even looking back, you validated. You did everything you could. So here's the boundaries I'm working within. Let's do this.
Yep. Yeah. So not a lot of regrets.
Good.
But again, there's a lot of teaching points and things, right? So bigger teaching moment in that first one, but not pre-flighting. Bigger teaching moment in the second one is just being able to relay that to tell how you have to remain calm in a situation, and even if something doesn't go your way, you don't let it affect the rest of your day or the next, like I said, next 20 minutes. So
and you had an audience. That's not completely rare, but it's for what you had, that's pretty rare. So
absolutely.
Then the spotlight's on you, and you're able to just push that out. You're focused, and like even having that the bloody hand or whatever, you didn't know the extent of it. Did you do any first aid at that point, or was he?
Because we were 30 seconds from landing, so I wasn't too worried about any kind of first aid.
Bring the medics in who have know what they're doing. And now they have like SMTs and that fly with you. Things have changed quite a bit, which is nice.
They do, but here's the downside with the SMT is if you're just doing a standard plane guard flight, which we were at that point, you don't normally fly with an SMT. SMTs are going to be taken when you have a medevac or when you have like you're maybe doing a personnel recovery mission. So but I do get what you're saying. But we are starting to get to the point now, and you and I've talked about this as I was helping you with your book, is how we're trying to get more medical involved with these students. So it just brings a better product to the fleet and then also to the student. So,
yeah, for sure. All right, well, man, great stories, great history. Just your whole journey is just fun. It's kind of like this snapshot of the SARS swimmer community and how it should be. So thank you for sharing all that. You want to do a fun 1 minute hypothetical?
Let's do it.
All right. So something I've been experimenting with, just to get into the mindset of a rescue swimmer or former rescue swimmer, always a rescue swimmer. And just kind of, I give you a scenario. You tell me what is going through your mind as you get this call, because, typically it's misinformation. We get a call or we're just flying around. We have no idea what we're getting launched for. And you kind of figure it out in the air.
Okay.
Let's see. How about a downed aircraft in hostile territory? Are you ready?
Ready.
All right. A naval pilot has ejected over enemy waters after a crash. The swimmer must locate the pilot while evading potential enemy forces, including boats and small arms fire. Yeah.
So at that point, I know for a fact that we're flying with a 240. Hopefully not a GAU, because a GAU 16 requires a whole lot less space for what we can do out the door. So you're going to have a 240, right? So at that point, you're going to do a quick kind of probably canvas around where this guy's at as you're getting ready for finding your wind line for the pilots up front. We're doing the best as we can in the back to look and see if there's anything that's like zooming in towards this guy. But at that point, no matter what, and we talk about it as swimmers, you do not sacrifice your life to even rescue someone else, right? So you don't put yourself in harm's way as best as possible. So I'll play this hypothetical as we're doing this hypothetical. I'll do it a lot with a TSO check boards and things like that. It's like, okay, do you as a swimmer, do you have to jump? The pilot says, jump, jump, jump. Do you have to jump? And the answer is no. If the situation is not safe, you do not have to jump. But at the end of the day, I said, if you make that choice and then you leave the area, you go back to the ship and you look at your other brothers and the command in the eyes, you better have a dang good reason why you did not. So I would hope in this situation that myself with the gun, make sure everything's kind of clear and whatnot. At that point, maybe we're hopefully launching another Alert 30 to do some maybe a little Overwatch as well, so that we could go and take care of the situation, get all the glory, and this other bird comes by and covers for us.
Yep, no, that's perfect. Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. I like to, it's interesting to just hear the thought process.
Sure.
It's not as easy as, oh, we'll go in and just light up the area and drop some napalm and we'll pick up this person.
And you and I probably did that, right? As nuggets, when I'd have senior TSOs, right? That would just, flights were not just sit around and do nothing. We would go down conference 2 and you would get training upon training. And it was a lot of the what if. All right, what happens if this happens right now? What happens with this? And I'll do that with these students now. And I talk about it. I was like, okay, same concept. When you're driving, you're going to work, you're doing whatever you whatnot. If you're not playing the what if game while you're driving, you're behind the 8 ball as it is already. What if this guy swerves into my lane right now? Where am I going to go? I'm going to go to the ditch. I'm going to go to the left. Just, you play that what if game in the back to be ready for a hypothetical like you just threw at. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it keeps you sharp. I mentioned
Absolutely.
Malcolm Gladwell's book, Blink, in Calm in the Chaos, because it's impactful because he has something called the adaptive unconscious. And it's first responders we'd be considered a first responder, our ability to act without thinking. And it's because we're always training, always thinking, so that when things do happen, you're not getting in your own way. You have that ability to react. And it's not as common as we think because we're in that space. And even the further you get away from it, like you're saying, there's an opportunity all throughout the day to have these, what if conversations in your own mind.
Absolutely.
You never know. You don't plan, like rescues or, traumatic scenarios aren't hopefully not planned.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Jonathan, you have had incredible experiences, 26 years of service, and what you're doing now, back at SAR school, just making a difference. But you've also had so many experiences that not many, even in the military, can relate to or even understand. With all of that, what is some wisdom that you have that you would share with the few people that are watching this?
I think the biggest thing, I'm sure it was something my dad instilled in me, but I can't pinpoint to a point where someone said something. I was just like, that's how I'm going to be. But I try to do everything in life the honest way. Don't lie. Be honest. Be true to yourself. Be of upright and moral character. Because if you do those things, when the moment strikes, you're going to do the right thing. You're not going to buckle. You're not going to lie. You're not going to cower away. You're going to stand up and you're going to do the right thing. So if you live your life like that, you will be ready to have calm in the chaos because you're going to be ready to go because you are true to yourself and your God and your country.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's such good wisdom. Well, thank you so much. It's just an honor to have you as a friend and to have you
right back at you
share your experiences. And thanks everyone for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Calm in the Chaos podcast. Please subscribe to be notified of future episodes. And if you enjoyed what you just heard, please leave a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Until next time, get out there and make a difference so others may live.